Munson from Munson Music, and welcome to a crash course on bass guitar. And if you are a guitar player kind of coming into bass, actually the bass is tuned exactly like the guitar low string, so the E, A, D, G. And actually you can even practice bass on a guitar if you don't have a bass. If you want to play bass instead of guitar, you can practice it that way. You just break your B and your E string. But we're going to kind of start by talking about all those things that you kind of need to know as kind of a beginner bass player and kind of experimenting with some things. And we're going to start off with all the parts of the electric bass. Actually got kind of the big part of it, which is the body. Then we have the neck that kind of runs this way. And we got our head. We got some tuners up here at the top, and that little white piece where the strings go over is called the nut. Then we have these silver lines that kind of go up the instrument, those are called frets, and each one's got a number. So we got first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, fifth fret. But then you've got some dots to kind of help you find your way around, kind of third fret, fifth fret, seventh fret, ninth fret dot, and then the double dot is the 12th fret. And he's pretty important, and we'll come back to why in just a moment. But then this whole chrome piece down at the bottom is called the bridge, and the little pieces that the string actually go over are called the saddles. The saddles that go on the horses that ride across the bridge. And then we have this white piece here, actually on this particular one. It's kind of a pick guard, or to guard against the, or to hide the electronics. And then we have the electronics, which we have the pickup, which is where the strings get picked up by cool little magnets. And then we have the volume knob and the tone knob, which will kind of make you brighter or darker. And then where you plug it in is called the jack. Then we have the sides, the back, the strap button, and then we have the peg or the strap button on the other side. And then we have our strings, which normally you would number the strings from the first string, or the string closest to the ground, to the thickest one. So kind of the G and the D, and then the A and the E is kind of what we have. Although a lot of times on bass we're really working with the E and the A strings. So I'm sure there are people out there who think of the E as the first string and the A as the second string, so that might be slightly confusing. But the main thing is to know the name of the string. So what you could do, and there's a couple ways you could do this. You could do pick stuff with the bass, or you could use your fingers. I'm kind of using fingers, but you could definitely take all these things and kind of work them as the pick. And actually you could even take your index finger, for instance, and use them as a pick, which can be kind of a cool thing too. So you may want to start out just playing the string and calling out the name. So you could start with the G and go G, and then we'd have the D, and then we have an A, and then we have an E. So that might be kind of a cool thing to do, just to kind of get used to that. G, D, A, E, E, A, D, G, just so you know those, but backwards and forwards. E, A, D, G, G, D, A, E. Now there's lots of rhythm things that we could do too, kind of practicing through the strings. Randomly, you could use your fingers, and actually, one really cool way to kind of work a two-note idea, for instance, would be doing index finger to middle finger, actually. So you could even take the index finger and then kind of play the index and then the middle finger on the G string. You might want to do that a lot just to kind of get used to that. Now you could use any fingers though, so you could do index to ring finger, you could do index to middle, you could do middle to ring, just to kind of see what that feels like. It's almost a Billy Sheehan moment. Actually, you may want to kind of play around with all the fingers that you have, man. Or you could even take your thumb and kind of try doing kind of down ups with the thumb, which can be kind of a cool way to kind of work it more like a working into slap bass kind of an idea later on. So you may want to kind of experiment with that, or you could get a pick and go down ups, which can be kind of cool too. Now, randomly, what can be kind of cool too with that is if you're tapping your foot to the beat and you're playing two notes on a string, that's something in music called an eighth note. Kind of that 1, 2, down, up, down, up, down, up. So you might want to kind of take as an exercise to kind of focus on the right hand, kind of an idea of playing two notes on a string. And you can do that with the pick or with the fingers, just to kind of play around with that. So that might be a cool way to kind of internalize some eighth notes. And something else you could do is you could take that idea of kind of two notes on a string and then make it a 3-note per string, kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this gets a little weird if you're using your fingers. And normally you would alternate it, so you'd go index, middle, index, and then switch to middle, index, middle. Or if you're doing all three fingers, index, middle, ring kind of works pretty good, to kind of get the triplet idea too. So you may want to kind of try that, kind of 3 notes on each string. Or if you're doing the picking, actually this can get kind of cool too. You'd be doing down, up, down, and then switching to up, down, up. And that's called alternate picking. So you may want to kind of play around with kind of doing 3 notes and kind of feeling 3 notes. Those are called triplets. Triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or you could really do any number to kind of focus in on the right hand. So if you did 4s, those are called 16th notes. Kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, down, up, if you're kind of working a pick. But any number can be a good idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Main thing is to kind of just play around with the right hand and get him used to moving around on the strings. And then the next thing I normally talk about in kind of a first bass lesson is left hand stuff. And with your left hand, your index is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So what I like to do is I'll start with 2-finger combinations, and sometimes these can feel easier further up the neck. Actually, you'll notice I am using a strap, kind of getting the head up a little bit. Sometimes that makes left hand a lot easier. And you could even take a lot of these exercises and kind of do them on the 12th fret, because it's just really, really close to you. So randomly, you could take the first finger and go to the G string on the 12th fret, and then take the second finger and then go to the next fret, kind of on the 13th fret. But I'm really kind of just thinking first finger to second finger is kind of an idea. It kind of becomes almost a Jaws idea. And you can really take that combination and do it anywhere, kind of that 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And there are a lot of different 2-finger combinations, actually. You could do 1 and 2. You could do 1 and 3, kind of using third finger, first finger to fourth finger. Or you could do 2 to 4. Or you could do 3 to 4. And kind of experiment with kind of different combinations. So that might be kind of a cool thing. And one thing I like to do is I'll kind of move around, take a combination, and kind of find some ways to move it. So one way that I like to do it is kind of 1 on each string. I call that climbing. And you can even kind of weave up the neck that way. And this can be kind of cool, even kind of moving by fret. And then kind of climbing, kind of getting used to how far is the next fret on the bass, because they're all slightly different distances. So it can be kind of weird. And you want to try and get right behind the fret, kind of right behind the line that is the fret when you're kind of working that. But the main thing is experiment with the left hand. Now there are also some technical things you could do to kind of mix that up too. One thing would be practicing hammer-on. So if you went back to that 12th fret on the G and kind of played the first finger note and then put the second finger down, that's called a hammer-on. So now I'm kind of getting the sound without using the right hand. So you may want to kind of take that hammer-on idea and then kind of just run with that. Or you could reverse that idea and kind of do the second finger first and then let them fall off the string towards the floor to get a pull-off sound. Kind of 2, 1, kind of pull-off sound, kind of reversing the pattern. So that might be kind of a cool thing to kind of practice around with too, working pull-offs. Or you could do slides where you kind of play one note and then slide to another note. And that could be a cool thing to kind of play around with too. Kind of just leaving a little bit of pressure on the string to kind of slide to a different note. And with these, I wouldn't worry about what notes you're playing. We're going to talk a lot about that in just a moment. But you may want to just find a combination you like, and then just maybe find some patterns. You know, hey man, I like doing it here, then going up a whole step or something. You know, just kind of finding something that feels good to you as an exercise without having to worry about what notes you're playing. Main thing is like find some things for the left hand to do. And then the next thing normally I'll talk about with a beginner bass student is kind of following some notes on the bass. And so this all relates to something called a chromatic scale, which we'll talk in depth about in a moment. But a really common progression, actually, I'm thinking of Last Kiss randomly by kind of redid by Pearl Jam, is notes in the key of G major. And so the chord progression actually through that particular song goes from G to an E minor chord to a C to a D chord. Actually, that's kind of what the guitar player is playing. And so a lot of times on bass, you play what's called the root of the chord. And so if the guitar player is playing a G chord, you want to be playing a G note. So a G note we could find on the bass on the low E on the 3rd fret. It's kind of a G. And then when the guitar player goes to the E minor chord, then we play an open E. So you could play just the open low E string. And then when the guitar player goes to a C chord, we could play a C note. So we could play the 3rd fret on the A string. And then when the guitar player goes to the D chord, then we can play a D note. And I like doing this 5th fret on the A string, because that way you've got more control over that note. Although you can play this open D, actually it's exactly the same note. It's kind of 5th fret on the A is the same note as open D. So if we follow that chord pattern, you have 3rd on the low E, 2, 3, 4, open E, 2, 3, 4, 3rd fret on the A, 5th fret on the A. So that'd be kind of following that oh where can E minor my baby be see? The Lord took her a D away from me. So I'm kind of following 4 beats on 2, 3, 4 foot taps, kind of on each of those notes. Now there's lots of room to add in other things in those 4 beats actually, but that's normally what your job is on beat 1, is to be playing the root of whatever chord's going on. Although each of those chords actually has some other notes that are fair game. And one of the most popular notes that I love adding to bass lines, instead of playing just the G note, you could add in something called the 5th. And this is kind of a power chord shape, if you're familiar with guitar shapes, where you could play 3rd fret on the low E string, and then take the 3rd of the 4th finger to go to the A string 5th fret, and that's what's called a 5th above the G note. Actually, if G was number 1 on your fingers, G, A, B, C, D, a D note is the 5th. So that shape never changes actually on the bass, kind of that G, D, and now it kind of almost turns into a country feel if you kind of do them back and forth like that. But that's a fair game note, because actually any chord, normally chords are happy or sad, major or minor, but each of those actually always has the 5th, unless we see something weird like a diminished or non-diminished chord. 9 times out of 10, you're safe on the 5th. So we could have the G, and the 5th of the G is that 5th fret on the A. And then on the E, for the open E, you could go to 2nd fret on the A, which is a B note. It's kind of the 5th for that. Actually, this is the same shape we just did, but for the open string. That's what it looks weird. And then for the C, then we'd have the 3rd fret on the A, but then we could go to 5th on the D for a 5th, which is the G note. And then for the D, we could use that same shape. So going from 5th fret on the A to 7th fret on the D. It's kind of another 5th, so that's a D to an A note. So your 5th is normally fair game, and there's lots of different ways to work this actually. If you were doing traditional country, you do kind of 2 beats on each of those, kind of root, 5th, root, 5th, root, 5th, root, 5th, root, 5th, C, root, 5th, D, root, 5th, and that would be kind of your main thing actually. There's definitely some James Brown that can work with that feel too. So you may want to kind of play around with that. Or a lot of times I like to swing it. So I'll kind of do kind of the G to D, which is a little weird, kind of like 1, if I'm counting foot taps, right? 1, 2, and then right when the up foot comes, I'm playing the next, or the 5th, and then hanging out for 3 and 4. So I'm playing the 5th on the up foot, but kind of G, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, C, 5th, D, 5th. So that might be kind of a cool way to kind of work it too, is to swing it a little bit. It's normally called syncopation when you're playing on the up foot, but you may want to kind of play around with that. Something else that can be kind of cool, rhythm-wise, to kind of work it back to the root on beat 4. So kind of a 1, 2, and 3, 4, back to the root. So root, 5th, root, root, 5th, root can be cool too. Root, 5th, root, E minor, 5th, C, C, G, C, D, A, D, G, D, G, E, B, E, C, D, or G, C, D, A, D. So you may want to kind of play around with that. Now, especially if you're digging on Latin stuff or more swing jazz stuff, it can be very cool to add in what's called the 3rd of the chord. So on the G, for instance, if you counted up 3 notes from G, G, A, B, a B note is what we call the 3rd of a G chord, and then we have C, D for the 5th. So you could play 3rd fret on the low E, and then 2nd fret on the A is a 3rd, or a B note, and then we could go to that 5th fret on the A for a D note. So kind of a G, B, D, root, another place you could play the B, and this is always weird because you've got options on bass. But you could go 3rd on the low E to 7th on the low E to 5th fret on the A. It's actually exactly the same note. It's kind of root, 3, 5, root, 3, 5, root, 3, 5. And then for the E minor, you'd be dealing with a E or a B note. So E, and then we'd be going 3rd fret on the low E for a G note for the 3rd, and then 2nd fret on the A for the 5th. And this is a little weird actually, but because it's a minor chord, the 3rd is 1 fret lower than it really should be. Or it's kind of a flat 3rd idea actually. It's kind of an open E to 3rd on the low E for the G note, for that's kind of a flat 3 idea. And then 2nd fret on the A. So you'd be going E, G, B, E, G, B for your E minor chord. Then for the C chord, we could take that same, actually either one of those shapes, actually we were doing for the G chord and run with it. So 3 on the A to 2nd on the D is an E note, and then 5th on the D is a G note. So for that C, E, G, if it feels better to do that 3, 7, 5, you can do it that way too. And then for the D, we could do that same shape for the D. Either way, which would be cool. So we kind of be doing little what are called arpeggios or broken chords, kind of breaking up the notes that are on the other chord. So all together, you'd have kind of the G, B, D, E, G, B, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, G, B, D, E, G, B, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A. It's kind of fair game notes to kind of add in the key of G. Now the shapes that I'm talking about actually are kind of related to something called the major scale. This can be a cool thing to kind of practice if you're starting out too. And a major scale is your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol. And there's a couple different patterns you may want to play around with for a major scale on bass. You could even use open strings actually. You could start 3rd on the low E for a G note, open A, and then 2nd on the A, 3rd on the A for a C note, open D, and then an E note on 2nd fret, F sharp on the D string. It's kind of 4th fret, and then open G would kind of be a root position G major. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. Or you could fret those notes. Actually, you could play exactly the same notes by going 3 to 5 on the E, and then 2, 3, 5 on the A, and then 2, 4, 5 on the D, and then 2, 4, 5 on the G. So I got the G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. Or what I like, especially in upper positions on the bass, is something called a stretch pattern for that. So you can play exactly the same notes, but go 3, 5, 7 on the E, 3, 5, 7 on the A, and then 4, 5, 7 on the D, 4, 5, 7 on the G. So now we're going G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. And what's cool about that is that kind of becomes our ruler for shapes with the bass. So one way to practice that is to kind of practice that for the notes. The other way to practice it is think about it as numbers. So you'd be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're back to 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. And what's really cool about bass is getting used to seeing that root to 5th. That's where that kind of comes from. And that root to 3 is kind of in the scale. So it's kind of cool because a lot of our things kind of measure things off. So for instance, on a G major chord, right now we're going root 3, 5. If it was a G minor chord, what you would do is you would flatten the 3rd. So now you'd be going from 3 to the 6 on the low E, and then the 5th on the A. It's kind of your root, flat 3, 5 kind of idea. So that's one note that changes between the major and the minor. Actually, if you see that little M, a lot of times you got to flat that 3rd, buddy. But anyway, so you may want to kind of experiment with that too. The kind of those arpeggios, major arpeggio, minor arpeggio, and normally that's kind of some fair game notes you can kind of work over some things. Now, all these notes that we're talking about, they relate to something called chromatic scale, which especially on bass is extremely important. What chromatic scale is where you play every single note and not leave anybody out. So normally what you would do is start on the E string, for instance, and then you play every fret, kind of open, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And actually, that's where things are going to start over again, actually. This is weird. When you get to 12th fret, the double dot is where we actually find another E note. So whatever the name of the open string is, E, then the 12th fret on that string is going to be the same exact note, E. So the main thing is that the notes in music. And in music, we use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we start over again on A. So we got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now the weird thing is, a lot of times we throw in some things called sharps and flats. And what a sharp is where you go up 1 fret. So if you started out with the open E, and then you went to 1st fret on the E, that's an F note. But then if you go to 2nd fret on the E, that's what we call F sharp. And then if you go to 3rd fret, that's a G. But then 4th fret's a G sharp, and then 5th fret's an A, and then we have an A sharp on 6th fret, and then we get to a magic note. On 7th fret, we have a B note, and B's magically go to C. That's actually where the white keys are together on a piano, is kind of that B to C, 7 to 8 on the Louis. And then we have 9th fret for a C sharp, and then 10th fret for a D, and then 11th fret for a D sharp, and then we'd be back to the E on the 12th fret. So that can be a really good thing to practice, kind of E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, and making yourself call those out just to get used to where those notes are. Everything will relate to those. And then from there, then you can work it backwards, because sometimes in music we use some things called flats. And what a flat is where you go the other way. So if E is on the 12th fret and you go back to 11th fret, we could call that E flat. And then if you go down to 10th fret, that's a D. 9th fret's a D flat. 8th fret's a C. 7th fret's a B. But then we got 6th fret's a B flat. And then A is 5th fret. And then 4th fret's A flat. And then 3rd fret's G. And then 2nd fret's G flat. And then F is on 1st fret. And then you're back to the open E. So you may want to just kind of practice that a lot too. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E flat, D, D flat, C, B, B flat, A flat, G, G flat, F, E, just to know those notes. And normally, actually on bass, you're normally using the E string and the A string and then kind of adding shapes normally in other places. So you may want to take the A string, for instance, and do the same thing, kind of A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and then A flat, G, G flat, F, E flat, D, D flat, C, B flat, A. So kind of going up the string can be a cool idea. Something else I like to do on bass is something I call note finds, where you go and pick a note. Like we can go, hey, we just did G major. We'll go find all the G's on the entire bass, because this won't take much time because we only have 4 strings. So you got 3rd fret on the low E, which is a G note. You got the open G. You also have a G on the 5th fret on the D string. And then we've got a G note that's on the A string on the 10th fret. And then we're back to the 12th fret on the G string. And then from there we'd have 15 on the low E. And then 17 on the D. And then I don't quite have enough to work from there. So that can be cool too, is to kind of get used to what shapes to one G note to the next G note looks like. And that's called an octave shape, because it deals with 8, right? G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So G is an octave. So you could kind of play that 3rd fret to the D string on the 5th, just to get used to seeing that shape. It looks a lot like the 5th, but you're off by 1 string. So now it's very disco, right? But you may want to kind of experiment with that too, kind of playing with the octave shape just to see it. And you actually have that same shape from the A string 10 to the 12th fret on the G. Actually, it's exactly the same shape from that G note to the other G note. The weird one really is kind of the 5th fret on the D to the A string on the 10. That's a weird shape because you're skipping over 1, 2, 3, 4 frets. It's really a unison. They're really exactly the same G note. But the cool thing is, if you're looking for another note, like for instance, if we were looking for an A note, you could take those same shapes and then kind of work the A the same distance away. So it might be a really cool thing to just be able to see those notes, those octaves, just so you can find things really quick. And you could even take the arpeggio arpeggios we were doing, like the G idea. And then if you wanted to, you could even carry that to the next G note. Might be kind of a cool idea. Right? Next octave to the E. Oh, yeah. And then C. But then, oh, that's a trippy one. And then D. Oh, but if I did it below E, you can see it from there. Yeah, it's the G, E minor, D, or C. Oh, yeah, C. And then D. Or you can throw in that octave at the end. So there's lots of different ways you can kind of work this stuff too, but just getting used to chromatic scale and moving those shapes around can get you a very, very long way as a bass player. Now, the other thing that you want to do as a beginner bass player, now that you know some scales and know where some notes are that you can play a million songs with, is to go hunt and find famous bass lines so people go, oh my gosh, man, that guy's awesome because he plays it exactly like the recording. So one famous bass line that can be kind of cool to start off with is Stand By Me, and I love Stand By Me. Just kind of been in a Stand By Me mood all week. But so the Stand By Me bass line kind of starts off with the E note, and then we go to an F sharp note on the low E on the 4th fret, and then we go to 5th fret on the low E twice. So we got kind of a 0, 4, 5, 5, 0, 4, 5, 5. And what we're doing is we're playing the E and then the G sharp on the 4th fret, and then the 5th fret is kind of an A note. So we're going E, G sharp, A, E, G sharp, A. And then there's this cool little walk down from there where we play 5 on the E, 4 on the A, or on the E, and then 2nd fret on the E. So it's kind of this 5, 4, 2, 2 idea. 5, 4, 2, 2, A, G sharp, F sharp, F sharp. But then we play open E, and then we go back to 2nd fret on the low E for that F sharp note again. So all together from the top we got E, G sharp, A, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 2, 2, 0, 2, 2. Kind of working out that on the E string, and then we play 2nd on the low E, open D, and then we go to open D. So that's kind of the weird part, is that 2, 0, open D. Or if you wanted to, you can even jump to that 5th fret if that's a little bit easier to control. And then from there we go open D to 4th fret on the D, and then 2nd fret on the D for an E note. So we're going 0, 4, 2, 2 on the D string. Or randomly, if you wanted to play those same notes somewhere else, you could go 5th fret on the A, 4th on the D, and then 7th on the A would be kind of a cool option for that too. If you're kind of digging on kind of that muting idea. So you got E, or 0, 4, 5, 5, 0, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 2, 2, 0, 2, 2, 2, 0, 5, 5, 5, 4, 7, 7, 0, 4, 5, 5, 0, 4, 5, 5. Or if you're digging on the open string, 4, 5, 5, 0, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 2, 2, 0, 2, 2, 2, 0, open, open, 0, 4, 2, 2, and then 0, 4, 5, 5, 4, 5, 5. So that may be kind of a cool thing to do too, is kind of work with that and getting to know where those notes are too in the lick. Actually making yourself sing those notes actually can be very, very cool too. E, G sharp, A, E, G sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, F sharp, E, F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, E, D, 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 F sharp, E, E, G sharp, A, E, G sharp, A. So that could be kind of a cool thing to kind of practice too. Randomly, another one that might come in very handy at a rehearsal might be Mission Impossible, because sometimes things just don't seem like they're ever going to come together in a rehearsal. So another really cool little bass line you may want to play around with is going 3rd fret on the low E twice, and then going 1st fret on the A, 3rd fret on the A, and then going back to 3 on the low E, and then going back to 1st fret on the low E, and then 2nd fret on the low E. So it's a little Mission Impossible lick. It's kind of 3, 3, 1, 3, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, 2. So you'll be going G, G, and then B flat, C, G, G, F, F sharp, G, G, E flat C, G, G, and F sharp. So that might be coming in handy too. And randomly, if you wanted to follow just the chords of Stand By Me and not the actual bassline, you could kind of follow that with that kind of the same ideas we were talking about with Last Kiss. So you could do the A major arpeggio for the A's. The F sharp would be a minor, so you have kind of that 2 to 5 on the low E, and then working the 4th fret on the A for your root flat 3-5. It's kind of working that shape. And then for the D, you'd have kind of the major stuff. And then for the E, you could do the root 3-5, or you could do the open E, and then work 4th fret on the low E for a 3rd, and then 2nd fret on the A for a 3rd. So kind of cool too. That E, G sharp, B, kind of a different way. So you'd have the A, F sharp minor, D, E. Now turned it into a Latin thing. A. When the A night has come. I feel like I gotta kind of do it twice. And the land is dark, and the moon is the only light we'll see. On that, so no, I won't be afraid. No, I won't. F sharp minor, just as D long as you E stand by. so you may want to kind of play around with that too. That might be kind of cool. But that's a lot of different information that you can kind of get started with the bass for. So thanks for watching my crash course on bass guitar. So good luck.